Tyler Martinez had been serving tables at Rosewood Bistro for 3 years, his hands trembling slightly as he approached table 12, where 4 businessmen in expensive suits were already snickering. He knew what was coming, the same cruel ritual that happened whenever new customers discovered his stutter. But what he didn't know was that across the restaurant, a man worth $50 million was watching every interaction with, quote, growing interest. The Millionaire CEO had seen something in Tyler that even Tyler couldn't see in himself. Something that would transform a struggling waiter into one of the most sought-after public speaking coaches in the city. But first, Tyler would have to survive the worst humiliation of his career. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The evening had started like any other at Rosewood Bistro, with the familiar clatter of dishes and the soft hum of conversation filling the upscale restaurant. Tyler Martinez adjusted his black tie for the 100th time that day, his palms already beginning to sweat as he surveyed his section. At 23, he possessed the kind of quiet dignity that made him memorable to customers, though not always for the reasons he hoped. His dark hair was meticulously combed, his uniform pressed to perfection, and his smile genuine despite the anxiety that constantly churned in his stomach. The bistro attracted a wealthy clientele, the kind of people who drove luxury cars and wore watches that cost more than Tyler made in 6 months. He had grown accustomed to their casual indifference, the way they barely acknowledged his presence as he took their orders and refilled their wine glasses. But tonight felt different somehow, charged with an energy that made the hair on his arm stand up. Tyler's speech impediment had been with him since childhood, a persistent stutter that emerged whenever he felt nervous or rushed. Years of therapy in high school had helped him develop coping mechanisms, breathing techniques, and word substitutions that usually allowed him to communicate clearly. But under pressure, especially when facing impatient or hostile customers, the old patterns would resurface with embarrassing intensity. He had learned to navigate his condition with grace, often taking a moment to collect himself before speaking, choosing his words carefully to avoid problematic consonants. Most regular customers at Rosewood had grown accustomed to his speech patterns and treated him with the same courtesy they would any other server. But new faces brought new challenges, and tonight the restaurant was full of unfamiliar guests. Table 12 had been seated for 10 minutes, 4 men in their 40s wearing the uniform of corporate success, tailored suits, gold watches, and the confident air of people accustomed to getting their way. Tyler had watched them from across the restaurant, noting their loud laughter and the way they commanded attention from everyone around them. One of them, a red-faced man with thinning hair, had already sent back his water twice, claiming it wasn't cold enough. As Tyler approached their table with menus tucked under his arm, he could feel their eyes sizing him up, the way predators might assess potential prey. He took a deep breath, employing the techniques his therapist had taught him years ago, and prepared to introduce himself. "Good evening, gentlemen," Tyler began, his voice steady and clear. "Welcome to Rosewood Bistro. My name is Tyler, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The red-faced man, whose nameplate identified him as Randy Morrison, looked up with a smirk already forming on his lips. Well, what do we have here? You look awfully young to be working in a place like this, kid." Tyler maintained his professional smile, though he could feel heat rising in his cheeks. "I've been here for 3 years, sir. I'd be happy to recommend some of our signature cocktails, or perhaps a wine from our selection." 3 years? Randy's companion, a man with steel-gray hair and cold blue eyes, leaned back in his chair. "Must be working your way through college, right? What are you studying, communications?" The question was delivered with barely concealed mockery, and the other men at the table chuckled. Tyler felt his throat beginning to tighten, the familiar sensation that preceded his worst stuttering episodes. He knew he was being baited, but professionalism demanded that he respond politely. "Actually, I'm saving money to continue my education. In the meantime, I take pride in providing excellent service here at Rosewood." "Saving money," Randy repeated, exchanging glances with his friends. "On a waiter's salary? That's ambitious. Tell you what, kid, why don't you get us 4 scotch and sodas, and we'll see if you can handle that without screwing it up." The casual cruelty in Randy's voice was nothing new to Tyler, but something about this particular group set his nerves on edge. He nodded professionally and headed to the bar, grateful for a moment to collect himself. The bartender, Maria, had been working at Rosewood almost as long as Tyler and had witnessed enough difficult customers to recognize trouble when she saw it. "Those guys giving you grief already?" she asked quietly as she prepared the drinks. Tyler managed a weak smile. "Nothing I can't handle. Just need to stay calm and professional. You know Tom's got your back if things get out of hand," Maria reminded him, referring to the restaurant's manager. "Don't let them push you around." Tyler nodded his thanks and returned to table 12 with their drinks arranged perfectly on a silver tray. He distributed them with practiced efficiency, placing cocktail napkins with the Rosewood logo beneath each glass. Randy immediately took a sip and made an exaggerated face of displeasure. "This tastes watered down," he announced loudly enough for neighboring tables to hear. "Are you sure you told the bartender to make it properly?" Tyler's heart began to race. He knew Maria made excellent drinks, but arguing with customers was never an option. "I'm sorry you're not satisfied with the drink, sir. I can have the bartender remake it if you'd like." The slight stutter on the word "sorry" was barely noticeable, but Randy's eyes lit up like a shark smelling blood in the water. "What was that? Did you just stutter at me?" Tyler felt his face burning with embarrassment. "I apologize, sir. I can get you a new drink right away." No, don't apologize," Randy said, his voice taking on a tone of fake concern. "I'm genuinely curious. Do you always talk like that, or are you just nervous?" The other men at the table were now fully engaged in the spectacle, leaning forward with anticipation. Tyler could feel the attention of nearby diners shifting to their table, conversations pausing as people began to listen. His throat felt like it was closing up, and he knew that trying to speak would only make things worse. I don't understand what you mean, sir," Tyler managed, though his words came out with painful hesitation. Randy's face broke into a wide grin. "Oh, this is rich. Look at this, guys. We've got a stuttering waiter. How does someone with a speech problem end up working in customer service?" The laughter that erupted from table 12 was loud and cruel, drawing stares from across the restaurant. Tyler stood frozen, his face burning with humiliation, as Randy continued his assault. "Seriously, kid, have you considered a career that doesn't involve talking to people? Maybe something in the back of the house?" Tyler's hands began to shake as he tried to formulate a response. Every technique he had learned for managing his stutter seemed to have abandoned him, and he could feel his throat constricting with each attempt to speak. I can get the manager if you'd prefer to speak with someone else." "The manager?" Randy's voice rose to a theatrical pitch. "Oh, this is perfect. The stuttering waiter wants to get his manager because he can't handle a simple conversation. What are you going to tell him? That we hurt your feelings?" The humiliation was overwhelming, but Tyler forced himself to remain professional. He had endured worse treatment in his life, and he refused to give these men the satisfaction of seeing him break. "I'm just trying to provide you with the best possible service, sir. If there's anything specific I can do to improve your experience tonight, please let me know." Randy's friends were now actively participating in the mockery, making exaggerated stuttering sounds and repeating Tyler's words back to him in mocking tones. Other diners were beginning to look uncomfortable, but no one intervened. Tyler felt more alone than he had in years, standing there in his pressed uniform while 4 grown men treated him like a circus act. "You know what would improve our experience?" Randy leaned back in his chair with a satisfied smirk. "Getting a waiter who can actually speak English properly. Maybe someone who didn't flunk out of elementary school speech class." The words hit Tyler like physical blows, but he maintained his composure through sheer force of will. He had learned long ago that reacting to bullies only encouraged them, and these men were clearly enjoying his discomfort far too much. "I understand your concerns, sir. Would you like me to send over another server?" "What we'd like," Randy said, his voice carrying across the restaurant, "is for you to say red roses 5 times fast. Can you do that for us, kid? Can you say red roses without turning it into some kind of comedy routine?" Tyler's vision began to blur with unshed tears, but he refused to let them fall. He had spent too many years building his confidence and self-respect to let 4 strangers destroy it in one evening. But as he opened his mouth to attempt the phrase, knowing it would likely come out mangled and provide even more ammunition for their cruelty, he heard a voice from across the restaurant. "Excuse me, gentlemen." The voice was calm, authoritative, and carried the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Tyler turned to see a man in his 50s approaching their table, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. Jasper Leong was not a large man, standing perhaps 5'8" with a slight build, but his presence filled the space around him like a force field. His dark suit was clearly expensive, but understated, and his silver hair was perfectly styled, despite the late hour. Randy looked up with annoyance at the interruption. "I'm sorry. Do we know you?" Jasper's smile was polite, but cold. "My name is Jasper Leong. I've been dining at this restaurant for 5 years, and in all that time, I've never witnessed such appalling behavior from customers." "Now wait just a minute," Randy began, his face reddening further. "This is a private conversation between us and our waiter." "Nothing about this conversation has been private," Jasper replied evenly. "Your voice has been carrying across the entire restaurant for the past 10 minutes. Every diner in this establishment has been forced to listen to your crude attempts at humor." Randy's friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing a change in the dynamics of the situation. Randy himself seemed taken aback by Jasper's calm authority, but his pride wouldn't allow him to back down. "Look, friend, I don't know who you think you are, but we're paying customers here. If the service is substandard, we have every right to express our dissatisfaction." Jasper's expression remained unchanged. "You're absolutely right. Paying customers do have the right to express legitimate concerns about service. However, what I've witnessed tonight has nothing to do with service quality and everything to do with your apparent need to humiliate a young man who has been nothing but professional and courteous." Tyler stood motionless between the two men, hardly believing what he was hearing. No customer had ever defended him before, and he found himself studying Jasper's face, trying to understand what motivated this unexpected intervention. "Professional and courteous?" Randy laughed, but the sound was forced and uncomfortable. The kid can barely string 2 words together without tripping over his tongue. How is that professional? Jasper's eyes hardened almost imperceptibly. "Tyler has served my table dozens of times over the years. He knows my order by heart, anticipates my needs before I voice them, and has never once provided anything less than exemplary service. His communication skills are excellent, and his dedication to his work is evident to anyone with the intelligence to recognize it." The weight of Jasper's words settled over the table like a blanket of snow, cold and heavy. Randy's companions were now actively avoiding eye contact, clearly embarrassed by their participation in the evening's cruelty. Randy himself seemed to deflate slightly, his bravado wavering in the face of Jasper's quiet intensity. "Furthermore," Jasper continued, his voice never rising above conversational volume, "I've observed Tyler handle difficult situations with more grace and professionalism than many executives I know. His speech patterns are irrelevant to his ability to do his job, which he does extraordinarily well." Randy made one last attempt to regain control of the situation. "Look, I don't know what your relationship is with the kid, but we're just having a little fun. No harm done." Jasper's smile was arctic. "No harm done? You've spent the last 15 minutes attempting to destroy a young man's dignity for your own entertainment. You've disrupted the dining experience of every person in this restaurant with your juvenile behavior. And you've demonstrated a level of cruelty that says far more about your character than his speech ever could about his." End quote. The silence that followed was deafening. Other diners had stopped pretending not to listen, and were now openly watching the confrontation. Tyler felt caught between gratitude and mortification, grateful for Jasper's defense, but embarrassed that the situation had escalated to this point. Randy's face had gone from red to pale, and when he spoke again, his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "We didn't mean anything by it. We were just, joking around." "Joking?" Jasper repeated the word as if tasting something bitter. "I'm curious about your definition of humor. Does it typically involve mocking people for characteristics they cannot control? Do you often find entertainment in the discomfort of service workers who cannot defend themselves without risking their employment?" Randy's friends were now studying their drinks with intense concentration, clearly wishing they could disappear. One of them, a thin man with nervous eyes, cleared his throat softly. "Maybe we should just order our food and, keep things quiet." But Jasper wasn't finished. "I'm going to make a suggestion, gentlemen. I think you should settle your bill and find somewhere else to dine tonight." Rosewood Bistro has a reputation for providing a comfortable, respectful environment for all its guests. Your behavior has violated that standard." End quote. Randy's face flushed again, this time with anger rather than embarrassment. "You can't throw us out. You don't work here." "You're absolutely correct," Jasper agreed calmly. "I don't work here, but I do have significant influence in this city's business community, and I make it a point to remember the names and faces of people who demonstrate such profound lack of character." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Randy seemed to recognize something in Jasper's tone that suggested this was not an idle warning. After a long moment, he threw his napkin on the table and stood up abruptly. "Fine. This place is overpriced anyway. Come on, guys, let's find somewhere with better service." His companions rose without argument, clearly eager to escape the increasingly uncomfortable situation. As they gathered their belongings, Randy made one final attempt to salvage his dignity. "You know what your problem is, kid?" he said to Tyler. "You're too sensitive. Learn to take a joke." Tyler felt the familiar tightness in his throat, but before he could attempt a response, Jasper stepped forward slightly. "His only problem," Jasper said quietly, "is that he had the misfortune of serving 4 adults who never learned basic human decency. That's not his shortcoming, it's yours." Randy's mouth opened as if to respond, but something in Jasper's expression stopped him. Instead, he turned and walked toward the exit, his friends trailing behind him like chastened schoolchildren. The sound of their departure seemed to release the tension that had gripped the restaurant, and conversations gradually resumed at neighboring tables. Tyler stood in the aftermath, still processing what had just happened. His hands were shaking, and he felt emotionally drained from the encounter. Jasper remained at his side, his presence both comforting and slightly intimidating. "Are you all right?" Jasper asked, his voice gentler now that the confrontation was over. Tyler nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure he was telling the truth. "Thank you," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't have to do that." "Actually, I did," Jasper replied with conviction. "Staying silent in the face of cruelty makes us complicit in it. Besides, what they did to you was unconscionable." Tyler looked at this stranger who had risked social discomfort to defend him, trying to understand his motivation. "You said you've been coming here for 5 years. I don't remember serving you before." Jasper's smile was kind, but sad. "You've served me many times, Tyler. I usually sit at table 3 by the window. I tend to dine alone and keep to myself, so I'm not surprised you don't remember me specifically." The admission made Tyler feel even worse about not recognizing his defender. "I'm sorry, I should have remembered. You're clearly a valued customer." "Don't apologize," Jasper said firmly. "You serve dozens of people every shift. It's natural that some would blur together. What matters is that you treat everyone with the same courtesy and professionalism, which you consistently do." Tyler felt tears threatening again, but this time they were tears of gratitude rather than humiliation. "I don't know how to thank you. What you did, standing up for me like that, it means more than you know." Jasper studied Tyler's face for a moment, as if weighing some internal decision. "Can I ask you something personal, Tyler? What are your goals for the future? You mentioned saving money for education." The question caught Tyler off guard. Well, I've always been interested in business. I thought maybe someday I could take some classes, learn about management or marketing. But college is expensive, and with my speech issues, I'm not sure how practical that is." "Your speech issues," Jasper repeated thoughtfully. "Have you ever considered that what you perceive as a limitation might actually be a strength in disguise?" Tyler looked confused. "I don't understand what you mean." "Think about what just happened here tonight," Jasper explained. "You faced sustained verbal assault from 4 men who were actively trying to humiliate you. Not once did you lose your composure. Not once did you respond with anger or defensiveness. You maintained your professionalism and dignity under circumstances that would have reduced many people to tears or rage." Tyler had never thought of his response in those terms. "I was just trying to do my job." "Exactly," Jasper said with growing enthusiasm. "That level of self-control, that ability to remain calm under pressure, those are incredibly valuable skills in the business world. Most executives I know would benefit from learning what you demonstrated tonight." The conversation was interrupted by Tom Brennan, the restaurant's manager. who had been watching the situation from across the room. Tom was a heavy-set man in his 40s, with the harried look of someone who had spent too many years dealing with difficult customers and temperamental kitchen staff. "Tyler, are you okay?" Tom asked with genuine concern. "I saw what happened, and I should have intervened sooner. I'm sorry you had to deal with that." "It's okay, Tom," Tyler replied, though his voice still carried traces of exhaustion. "Mr. Leon here helped resolve the situation." Tom extended his hand to Jasper. "I recognize you, sir. You're one of our regular customers. Thank you for stepping in. Behavior like that has no place in our restaurant." Jasper shook Tom's hand briefly. "I hope you'll consider banning those men from returning. Their conduct was unacceptable by any standard." "Already done," Tom assured him. "I've made a note in our reservation system. They won't be welcome back." He turned to Tyler with a sympathetic expression. "Why don't you take a few minutes to collect yourself? I can cover your tables until you're ready." Tyler nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Tom. I just need a moment." As Tom returned to his duties, Jasper lingered beside Tyler's table. "I meant what I said earlier about your potential. Have you ever considered that your experiences might make you uniquely qualified to help others who face similar challenges?" Tyler looked puzzled. "I'm not sure I follow." "Public speaking, presentation skills, confidence building," Jasper elaborated. "You've learned to navigate social situations that many people find terrifying. You've developed coping mechanisms for managing anxiety and maintaining composure under pressure. Those are skills that countless professionals desperately need." The idea had never occurred to Tyler. "But I'm the one with the speech problem. How can I teach others to speak publicly?" "Because you understand the fear intimately," Jasper replied. "You know what it feels like to be vulnerable, to worry about judgment, to struggle with self-doubt. That understanding would make you incredibly effective at helping others overcome similar obstacles." Tyler felt a spark of something he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of possibility that extended beyond his current circumstances. "I've never thought about it that way." Jasper reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a business card. "I'd like to propose something to you, Tyler. I own a consulting firm that works with executives on leadership development and communication skills. I'm always looking for talented individuals who bring unique perspectives to our training programs." Tyler accepted the card with trembling hands. The letterhead read, "Leon Strategic Consulting," and listed Jasper as Chief Executive Officer. "I don't have any formal training in business or communications." "Training can be acquired," Jasper said dismissively. "Character and natural ability cannot. What I saw tonight tells me you have both in abundance." Tyler stared at the business card, hardly believing what he was hearing. "What exactly are you proposing?" Jasper's expression grew serious. "I'm proposing to invest in your future, Tyler. I'd like to offer you a scholarship to attend business school, along with intensive speech therapy if you're interested. In return, I'd ask that you consider joining my firm as a communication consultant after you complete your education." The offer was so unexpected, so generous, that Tyler wondered if he was dreaming. "I don't understand. Why would you do this for me? You barely know me." "I know enough," Jasper replied with certainty. "I've observed your work ethic, your integrity, and your grace under pressure for years. Tonight confirmed what I already suspected, that you have the potential to achieve remarkable things if given the right opportunities." Tyler felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was being offered. "This is incredibly generous, but I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Jasper corrected firmly. "It's an investment. I believe you'll provide excellent value to my company and to the clients we serve. This is a business proposition based on your potential, not a handout based on sympathy." The distinction was important to Tyler, who had always prided himself on earning everything he received. "You really think I could succeed in business school? With my speech issues? Your speech patterns are irrelevant to your intelligence or your ability to learn," Jasper said with conviction. "And with proper training, you can develop strategies that will make your communication even more effective than it already is." Tyler looked around the restaurant, taking in the familiar sights and sounds of the place that had been his workplace for 3 years. The idea of leaving this world behind, of pursuing education and opportunities he had never dared to imagine, was both thrilling and terrifying. "Can I ask you something?" Tyler said quietly. "Why didn't you ever speak to me before tonight?" If you've been watching me serve for years, why wait until now to make this offer? Jasper's expression grew thoughtful. Honestly, because I wasn't sure you were ready. Talent is common, but the willingness to endure hardship and maintain your principles under pressure is rare. Tonight proved that you have both the ability and the character necessary for success. Tyler felt a surge of emotion that he struggled to contain. I need time to think about this. It's such a huge decision. Of course, Jasper agreed. Take all the time you need. My offer will remain open. He paused, then added, but I hope you won't let fear of the unknown prevent you from pursuing your potential. The world needs people like you, Tyler. People who understand struggle and maintain their humanity despite it. As Jasper prepared to return to his own table, Tyler found his voice. Mr. Liam, thank you. Not just for the offer, but for defending me tonight. I've never had anyone stand up for me like that. Jasper's smile was warm and genuine. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, Tyler. The fact that you're surprised by basic human decency tells me you haven't received enough of it in your life. That's something I hope we can change. Tyler spent the remainder of his shift in a daze, mechanically taking orders and serving customers while his mind raced with possibilities. The business card in his pocket felt like it was burning against his chest, a tangible reminder that his life had just taken an unexpected turn. When his shift ended at 11 p.m., Tyler found himself lingering in the employee break room, reluctant to leave the familiar comfort of his routine. Maria joined him as she finished her own closing duties, immediately noticing his distracted state. That was quite a scene tonight, she said, hanging up her apron. I've never seen anything like it. That guy really went to bat for you. Tyler nodded absently. He offered me a job. Well, more than a job. A whole new life, really. Maria's eyebrows shot up. What kind of job? Tyler explained Jasper's proposal, the scholarship offer, and the promise of employment after graduation. Maria listened with growing amazement, occasionally interrupting with questions or expressions of disbelief. Tyler, do you realize what this means? She said when he finished. This is like winning the lottery. You could get out of here, really make something of yourself. I know, Tyler replied, but his voice lacked enthusiasm. It's just so overwhelming. What if I'm not smart enough for business school? What if I can't handle the pressure? What if I fail and end up worse off than I am now? Maria grabbed him by the shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. Tyler Martinez, listen to me. You are one of the smartest, hardest-working people I know. You've been dealing with difficult customers and high-pressure situations for years. You can handle anything business school throws at you. Tyler felt some of his anxiety begin to ease under Maria's confident assessment. You really think so? I know so, she said with absolute certainty. And you know what else? That speech thing you're so worried about? Half the executives I serve in here can barely string together a coherent sentence, and they don't have any excuse. You're already better than most of them. Tyler laughed despite his nervousness. You're probably right about that. I'm definitely right about that, Maria corrected. Tyler, opportunities like this don't come along often. Don't let fear keep you from grabbing it with both hands. Tyler drove home to his small apartment in a part of town that gentrification had not yet reached, his mind churning with questions and possibilities. His apartment was modest, but clean, furnished with second-hand pieces that he had carefully chosen for both function and affordability. The walls were lined with books he had collected over the years, volumes on business, psychology, and communication that he had studied in his spare time, dreaming of someday putting the knowledge to practical use. He sat at his small kitchen table and pulled out Jasper's business card, studying it in the harsh light of his overhead fixture. The weight of the decision before him felt enormous, but gradually, a sense of certainty began to emerge from the chaos of his thoughts. Tyler had spent his entire adult life playing it safe, accepting limitations that others had imposed on him, convincing himself that his dreams were impractical given his circumstances. But tonight had shown him something different. Tonight had shown him that there were people in the world who could see past his speech impediment to recognize his true potential. He thought about Jasper's words, about the idea that his struggles might actually be strengths in disguise. For the first time, Tyler began to consider that his experiences with stuttering, with social anxiety, with feeling like an outsider, might not be obstacles to overcome, but rather tools he could use to help others facing similar challenges. The next morning, Tyler called the number on Jasper's business card. The receptionist who answered was professional and courteous, immediately recognizing Tyler's name when he identified himself. "Mr. Leong has been expecting your call," she said warmly. "He's asked me to schedule a meeting at your earliest convenience. When would be a good time for you?" Tyler's heart raced as he realized there was no going back once he walked into that office. "How about tomorrow afternoon? I work the dinner shift, so any time before 4 would work." "Perfect. How does 2 o'clock sound? I'll email you the address and parking information." After hanging up, Tyler sat in his quiet apartment and allowed himself to imagine a different future. He pictured himself in a classroom, learning alongside other ambitious students. He imagined presenting to corporate clients, using his hard-won understanding of communication anxiety to help them become more effective speakers. Most surprisingly, he found himself excited rather than terrified by these visions. The meeting with Jasper took place in a sleek office building downtown, 30 floors above the city streets. Leong Strategic Consulting occupied the entire 28th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of the skyline. Tyler arrived 15 minutes early, partly from nervousness and partly from ingrained punctuality habits developed during his years in service work. Jasper's office was tastefully decorated with modern furniture and abstract art, but what struck Tyler most was its warmth. Despite the obvious expense of the surroundings, the space felt welcoming rather than intimidating. Jasper himself was dressed more casually than he had been at the restaurant, wearing slacks and a button-down shirt with no tie. "Tyler, thank you for coming," Jasper said, rising from behind his desk to shake hands. "I hope you've had time to consider my proposal." Tyler settled into a leather chair across from Jasper's desk, his nervousness evident but controlled. "I have, and I'm interested, but I need to understand exactly what you're expecting from me." Jasper nodded approvingly. "Direct questions are always welcome here. Let me outline specifically what I'm proposing." He opened a folder on his desk and withdrew several documents. "I'm offering to pay for a 2-year MBA program at the university of your choice, along with living expenses during your studies. I'm also prepared to fund intensive speech therapy with one of the city's top specialists, if that's something you'd find helpful." Tyler's eyes widened as he processed the scope of the offer. "That's got to be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The total investment would be approximately $300,000 over 2 years, Jasper confirmed matter-of-factly. "In return, I'm asking for a 5-year commitment to work with my firm after you graduate. Your starting salary would be $120,000 annually, with performance bonuses and regular increases based on your contributions." Tyler felt dizzy at the numbers being discussed. His current salary at Rosewood was barely $25,000 a year, and the idea of earning nearly 5 times that amount seemed almost fictional. "What would my responsibilities be?" Tyler asked, forcing himself to focus on practical concerns. "Initially, you'd work as a communication consultant, helping our clients develop presentation skills, overcome speaking anxiety, and improve their overall communication effectiveness," Jasper explained. "As you gain experience and expertise, you take on increasing responsibilities, potentially leading training programs and developing new service offerings." Tyler leaned forward in his chair, his interest growing. "You really think there's a market for that kind of consulting?" Jasper's laugh was genuinely amused. "Tyler, you'd be amazed how many successful executives are terrified of public speaking. I have clients who run multi-million-dollar companies but break into a cold sweat at the thought of presenting to their own board of directors. Your expertise in managing communication anxiety would be invaluable." End quote. The conversation continued for over an hour, with Jasper outlining the details of the arrangement and Tyler asking increasingly sophisticated questions about the business and his potential role within it. By the end of the meeting, Tyler felt confident that the opportunity was both legitimate and potentially transformative. "I have one more question," Tyler said as the meeting wound down. "Why me? I'm sure there are other people you could invest in, people with more education or experience." Jasper's expression grew serious. "Because education and experience can be taught, but character cannot. What I saw at the restaurant that night, the way you maintained your dignity and professionalism under attack, that's rare. Most people either crumble under that kind of pressure or respond with anger. You did neither. That tells me you have the emotional intelligence and self-control necessary for success in this field. Tyler felt a warmth spreading through his chest, a sense of validation he had rarely experienced. When would you need an answer? Take your time, Jasper replied. This is a major life decision, and it shouldn't be rushed. But I will say this. The fall semester starts in 4 months. If you're interested in beginning this fall, we'd need to get your application submitted soon. Tyler left the meeting with a thick folder of information about MBA programs, speech therapy options, and detailed documentation of Jasper's offer. As he rode the elevator down from the 28th floor, he found himself grinning uncontrollably at his reflection in the polished steel doors. That evening at Rosewood, Tyler moved through his shift with a new sense of purpose. Every interaction with customers became an opportunity to practice the communication skills he was beginning to recognize as his natural strengths. When a nervous young couple struggled to choose between menu options, Tyler found himself naturally putting them at ease with gentle humor and patient explanations. When an elderly gentleman became frustrated with the restaurant's limited vegetarian options, Tyler calmly worked with the kitchen staff to create a custom meal that exceeded the customer's expectations. Maria noticed the change in Tyler's demeanor immediately. "You look different tonight," she observed, during a brief lull in service. "More confident or something." Tyler smiled as he polished wine glasses. "I think I'm starting to see myself differently. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking about what I can do instead of what I can't do. Does that mean you're taking the job offer?" Tyler nodded slowly. "I think I am. It's terrifying, but I can't let fear keep me from trying." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Tyler submitted applications to 3 prestigious MBA programs, each requiring essays that forced him to articulate his goals and motivations with unprecedented clarity. Writing about his experiences with stuttering and his vision for helping others overcome communication barriers felt both vulnerable and empowering. Jasper proved to be as good as his word, providing not only financial support, but also guidance throughout the application process. He introduced Tyler to several business school alumni who offered insights into program selection and interview preparation. Most surprisingly, Jasper also connected Tyler with Dr. Sarah Chen, a speech therapist who specialized in working with adult professionals. "Many of my clients are executives who've reached senior positions despite having communication anxieties," Dr. Chen explained during Tyler's first appointment. "What they often discover is that their awareness of their own vulnerabilities makes them more empathetic leaders and more effective communicators than people who've never faced such challenges." The speech therapy sessions were unlike anything Tyler had experienced in high school. Rather than focusing solely on fluency techniques, Dr. Chen helped Tyler understand the neurological basis of his stuttering and develop strategies that worked with his natural speech patterns rather than against them. "Your stutter isn't a flaw to be hidden," she explained during one session. "It's part of your communication style, and when managed skillfully, it can actually enhance your effectiveness by forcing you to be more thoughtful and deliberate in your word choices." This perspective was revolutionary for Tyler, who had spent years viewing his speech patterns as limitations to be overcome. Under Dr. Chen's guidance, he began to see his stuttering as one element of a complex communication system that included body language, tone, pacing, and emotional intelligence. 3 months after his meeting with Jasper, Tyler received acceptance letters from all 3 MBA programs he had applied to. The University of Chicago offered him a spot in their prestigious business school, and Tyler accepted with a mixture of excitement and terror. His last shift at Rosewood Bistro was bittersweet. The regular customers who had come to know him over the years wished him well, and several left generous tips along with notes of encouragement. Tom Brennan, the manager, made a brief speech during the staff meeting, praising Tyler's professionalism and wishing him success in his new endeavors. "You've set a standard here that other servers try to match," Tom said, his voice uncharacteristically emotional. "We're going to miss you, but we're also proud to have been part of your journey." Maria hugged Tyler tightly as they finished their final shift together. "Promise me you'll stay in touch," she said, tears in her eyes. "And promise me you won't forget where you came from." Tyler's voice was thick with emotion as he replied, "How could I forget? This place taught me everything I know about dealing with people, about staying calm under pressure, about maintaining dignity in difficult situations. I'm not leaving this behind, I'm building on it." Business school proved to be as challenging as Tyler had anticipated, but in ways he hadn't expected. The academic rigor was intense but manageable, his years of self-directed study having prepared him well for the analytical demands of coursework. The greater challenge was social, learning to navigate an environment populated by students who had attended elite undergraduate institutions and worked for prestigious consulting firms and investment banks. Tyler's background in food service made him an anomaly among his classmates, many of whom had never held jobs outside of summer internships at their parents' companies. Initially, he felt self-conscious about his working-class background and his speech patterns, which became more pronounced when he was nervous or tired. However, Tyler gradually discovered that his unique perspective was an asset rather than a liability. In case study discussions about customer service and employee relations, his insights were informed by actual experience rather than theoretical knowledge. When classmates struggled with presentation assignments, Tyler found himself naturally taking on a mentoring role, sharing techniques he had developed for managing speaking anxiety. Professor Janet Morrison, who taught the organizational behavior course, noticed Tyler's influence on his peers and asked him to stay after class one day. "I've been observing your contributions to class discussions," she said, "and I'm impressed by your ability to help other students overcome their presentation anxiety. Have you considered that this might be a valuable skill set for your future career?" Tyler explained his arrangement with Jasper and his plans to work in communication consulting after graduation. Professor Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "I think you're going to find that your experiences give you a significant advantage in that field," she said. "Most communication consultants come from backgrounds in theater or public relations. Having someone who understands anxiety from the inside out, who has developed practical coping strategies through necessity rather than theory, that's rare and valuable." The validation from Professor Morrison reinforced Tyler's growing confidence in his chosen path. He began seeking out additional opportunities to develop his consulting skills, volunteering to help classmates prepare for job interviews and presentation competitions. Word of his effectiveness spread quickly through the business school community, and soon Tyler was unofficially coaching students from other programs as well. During winter break of his first year, Tyler returned to the city and met with Jasper to discuss his progress. The meeting took place at Rosewood Bistro, a choice that felt symbolically appropriate to both men. "You look different," Jasper observed as they settled into a corner booth. "More confident, more settled in your own skin." Tyler smiled, recognizing the truth in Jasper's assessment. "I feel different. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing." Jasper nodded with satisfaction. "That's exactly what I hoped would happen. Tell me about your experiences so far." Tyler recounted his academic progress, his social adjustments, and his informal coaching work with other students. Jasper listened intently, occasionally asking questions or offering observations based on his own business experience. "It sounds like you're already developing the skills and reputation that will serve you well in consulting," Jasper noted. "Have you given any thought to what specific areas you'd like to focus on when you join the firm?" Tyler had indeed been thinking about this question extensively. "I'm most interested in working with professionals who struggle with imposter syndrome and communication anxiety. People who are technically competent but held back by their fear of speaking up or presenting their ideas." "That's a significant market," Jasper agreed. "I estimate that at least 60% of the executives I work with could benefit from that kind of support. Many of them have never admitted their struggles to anyone, let alone sought help addressing them." The conversation reinforced Tyler's sense that he was on the right path, but it also highlighted the enormity of the opportunity ahead of him. He was no longer just thinking about his own career success, but about the potential impact he could have on countless professionals who faced similar challenges. Tyler's second year of business school flew by in a blur of advanced coursework, internship applications, and thesis preparation. He chose to write his thesis on Communication Anxiety in Corporate Leadership, Strategies for Recognition and Intervention, a topic that allowed him to combine academic research with his personal experiences and observations. The thesis defense was a pivotal moment for Tyler, requiring him to present his research to a panel of professors and outside experts. Standing before the panel, Tyler felt the familiar tightness in his throat that had plagued him since childhood. But instead of fighting the sensation, he employed the techniques Dr. Chen had taught him, using deliberate pauses and careful word selection to manage his speech patterns. Communication anxiety affects an estimated 75% of the population, Tyler began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. In corporate environments, this anxiety can prevent talented individuals from advancing to leadership positions, not because they lack competence, but because they lack confidence in their ability to communicate effectively. The presentation went smoothly, with Tyler fielding questions from the panel with growing confidence. His research was well received, and several professors expressed interest in collaborating on future projects related to communication training in business settings. As graduation approached, Tyler reflected on the transformation he had undergone over the past 2 years. The young man who had stood trembling before table 12 at Rosewood Bistro seemed like a different person, someone from another lifetime. The education and experiences had changed him, but more importantly, they had revealed capacities and strengths that had always existed within him. Jasper attended Tyler's graduation ceremony, beaming with pride as Tyler crossed the stage to receive his MBA diploma. At the reception afterward, Jasper introduced Tyler to several clients and colleagues, describing him as the future of communication consulting. "I've been watching Tyler's development for 2 years," Jasper told a group of executives from various companies. "His combination of academic training, practical experience, and intuitive understanding of communication challenges is unprecedented in my experience." Tyler felt a surge of gratitude toward the man who had seen potential in him when no one else, including himself, had recognized it. "I couldn't have done any of this without Jasper's faith in me," Tyler said to the group. "Sometimes it takes someone else to see what we're capable of before we can see it ourselves." Tyler began his career at Leong Strategic Consulting the Monday after graduation, moving into an office on the 27th floor of the same building where he had first met with Jasper. His initial assignments involved shadowing senior consultants and observing client interactions, learning the practical aspects of the business that complemented his academic training. His first solo client was Margaret Stevens, a vice president at a manufacturing company who had been promoted based on her technical expertise, but struggled with the communication demands of her new role. Margaret was in her early 40s, brilliant and accomplished, but terrified of the monthly presentations she was required to give to the company's board of directors. "I know my material better than anyone in the room," Margaret explained during their first meeting. "But the moment I stand up to present, my mind goes blank and my voice starts shaking. I'm convinced they're going to realize they made a mistake promoting me." Tyler recognized the pattern immediately, having experienced similar feelings countless times. "What you're describing is incredibly common," he assured Margaret. The gap between competence and confidence affects even the most successful professionals. Over the course of 6 sessions, Tyler worked with Margaret to develop strategies for managing her presentation anxiety. Rather than focusing on eliminating nervousness entirely, Tyler taught her to reframe her anxiety as excitement and to use breathing techniques and visualization exercises to maintain control. "The goal isn't to stop being nervous," Tyler explained. "The goal is to be nervous and present effectively anyway. Your nervousness shows that you care about doing well, which is actually a strength." Margaret's transformation was remarkable. By their final session, she was presenting with confidence and even enjoying the process of sharing her expertise with the board. Her feedback to Jasper was enthusiastic and detailed, praising Tyler's understanding, empathy, and practical approach. Word of Tyler's effectiveness spread quickly through the business community. Within 6 months, he had a waiting list of clients seeking his services, and Jasper was fielding requests from companies wanting to book Tyler for group workshops and training seminars. "I think it's time to discuss expanding your role," Jasper said during one of their monthly check-in meetings. "The demand for your services is exceeding our capacity to meet it." Tyler had been thinking along similar lines. "I'd like to develop a comprehensive training program that could be delivered to larger groups," he said. "Something that combines the individual coaching techniques with group dynamics and peer support." Jasper's eyes lit up with interest. "Tell me more about what you envision." Tyler outlined his ideas for a program called Confident Communication, which would combine individual assessment, group workshops, peer coaching, and ongoing support. The program would be designed specifically for professionals who struggled with communication anxiety, but were otherwise competent and accomplished. "The key insight from my thesis research," Tyler explained, "is that communication anxiety often stems from perfectionism and fear of judgment. Traditional presentation training focuses on technique, but what most people really need is permission to be imperfect and strategies for managing their internal critic." End quote. Jasper nodded thoughtfully. "That aligns with what I've observed in my years of consulting. Technical skills are relatively easy to teach, but changing someone's relationship with their own anxiety is much more complex and valuable." The development of the Confident Communication program became Tyler's primary focus over the following months. He piloted different versions with various client groups, refining the content and delivery methods based on participant feedback and outcome measurements. The program's success exceeded everyone's expectations. Companies reported significant improvements in employee engagement, with participants taking on leadership roles they had previously avoided and contributing more actively to meetings and strategic discussions. Several corporations signed multi-year contracts to provide the training to their entire management teams. Tyler's reputation in the business community continued to grow, and he began receiving invitations to speak at conferences and industry events. The irony was not lost on him that someone who had once been mocked for his speech impediment was now sought after as an expert on public speaking and communication. 1 year after joining Jasper's firm, Tyler received an invitation that would complete the circle of his transformation. The organizers of the National Restaurant Association's annual conference had asked him to deliver the keynote address on Leadership Through Service, Lessons from the Hospitality Industry. The invitation was particularly meaningful because it would allow Tyler to speak directly to an audience of restaurant professionals, people who understood the challenges and dignity of service work. He accepted immediately, despite feeling nervous about addressing such a large audience. Tyler spent weeks preparing for the keynote, crafting a speech that would honor his experiences in food service, while inspiring others to recognize the leadership skills they had developed through their work. He practiced relentlessly, using all the techniques he had learned and taught to manage his own presentation anxiety. The morning of the conference, Tyler stood in the wings of the convention center auditorium, looking out at an audience of over 2,000 restaurant professionals. His palms were sweaty and his heart was racing, but he felt prepared and purposeful. As he walked onto the stage, Tyler thought about the journey that had brought him to this moment. He thought about the humiliation he had experienced at table 12, about Jasper's unexpected intervention, about the leap of faith that had changed everything. Most of all, he thought about all the servers, hosts, and kitchen staff in the audience who might be struggling with their own dreams and limitations. "Good morning," Tyler began, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium's sound system. "My name is Tyler Martinez, and 3 years ago, I was serving tables at a restaurant not unlike the ones where many of you work." He paused, scanning the audience and noting the attention and interest in their faces. "I want to tell you about the night that changed my life, and more importantly, about what that night taught me about the extraordinary leadership skills that every person in food service develops." Tyler's speech was a masterpiece of storytelling and inspiration. He recounted his experiences at Rosewood Bistro, including the humiliating encounter with Randy Morrison and his colleagues. But he framed these experiences in terms of the resilience, emotional intelligence, and grace under pressure that they had required. "Every day in food service, you practice skills that Fortune 500 executives pay thousands of dollars to learn," Tyler told the audience. "You read people's emotions and adapt your communication style accordingly. You manage multiple priorities under intense pressure. You turn angry customers into satisfied ones through patience and problem solving. You work as part of a team where everyone's success depends on everyone else's performance." End quote. The audience was completely engaged, many nodding in recognition of their own experiences. Tyler could see servers and managers throughout the auditorium sitting up straighter, their faces reflecting a new appreciation for their own capabilities. "The hospitality industry doesn't just serve food and drinks," Tyler continued, his confidence growing with every word. "It develops leaders. It creates professionals who understand human nature, who can perform under pressure, who know how to make people feel valued and heard. These are not just job skills, they are life skills, leadership skills, and they are incredibly valuable in any industry." End quote. Tyler concluded his speech with a challenge to the audience. "Don't let anyone convince you that service work is just a stepping stone to something better. Service work is something better. It's an education in human nature, a masterclass in communication, and a proving ground for leadership. The question isn't whether you're capable of more. The question is whether you recognize how much you're already capable of." The standing ovation lasted for nearly 5 minutes, with restaurant professionals throughout the auditorium rising to their feet in appreciation. Tyler stood at the podium, overwhelmed by the response and by the realization of how far he had traveled from that humiliating night at Rosewood Bistro. After the speech, Tyler was surrounded by audience members who wanted to share their own stories and express their gratitude for his message. Many were young servers and hosts who saw new possibilities for their futures, while others were restaurant managers and owners who gained fresh appreciation for their teams. Among the well-wishers was a familiar face, Maria from Rosewood Bistro, who had attended the conference as part of her own professional development. She pushed through the crowd and embraced Tyler with tears in her eyes. "I am so proud of you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "When I saw your name on the program, I couldn't believe it. Tyler Martinez, keynote speaker. Do you remember what I told you that night when you were afraid to take Jasper's offer?" Tyler smiled, remembering her fierce encouragement. "You told me that opportunities like that don't come along often, and that I shouldn't let fear keep me from grabbing it with both hands. And look at you now," Maria said, gesturing around at the crowd of admirers. "You didn't just grab that opportunity, you turned it into something that's helping thousands of other people. That man, Jasper, he saw something special in you, but you're the one who made it real. Why?" Tyler felt a profound sense of completion standing there with Maria, surrounded by people whose lives mirrored his own earlier experiences. The circle had indeed closed, but in the most positive way imaginable. Later that evening, Tyler called Jasper to report on the success of the keynote presentation. Jasper listened with evident pride, as Tyler described the audience's response and the conversations that had followed. "You know," Jasper said when Tyler finished, "I've been thinking about that night at Rosewood, about the decision to intervene when those men were harassing you." "What about it?" Tyler asked. "I've always believed that we have an obligation to help others when we can, but I had no idea that helping you would end up benefiting so many other people. Your work is reaching hundreds of professionals, helping them overcome limitations they didn't even realize they could overcome." End quote. Tyler considered this perspective. "I think that's how good things spread in the world. One person helps another, and that person finds ways to help others, and eventually the impact grows beyond what anyone originally imagined." "Exactly. Jasper. Agreed. Which brings me to something I wanted to discuss with you. I've been thinking about succession planning for the firm, and I believe you're ready for a much larger role in the company's direction and growth." The conversation that followed outlined a path for Tyler to become a partner in Leong Strategic Consulting, with equity ownership and responsibility for developing the firm's communication training division. It was another leap forward, another opportunity that Tyler would have never imagined possible just a few years earlier. As Tyler considered this new opportunity, he thought about the young servers and hosts who had approached him after his keynote speech, asking for advice about pursuing their own dreams. He realized that his story had become more than just a personal transformation. It had become a template for recognizing and developing potential in unexpected places. 6 months later, Tyler opened his own communication consulting practice in partnership with Jasper's firm. The office was located in the same building where he had first met with Jasper, but now Tyler occupied the 29th floor with panoramic views of the city below. The practice specialized in working with professionals from non-traditional backgrounds, people whose experiences had given them unique perspectives and capabilities that weren't immediately recognized in corporate curricula environments. Tyler's client base included former service workers, immigrants, people with disabilities, and others who had been overlooked by traditional talent development programs. Tyler's success had attracted national attention, and he began receiving invitations to consult with major corporations on inclusive leadership development and communication training. His techniques for helping people overcome imposter syndrome and communication anxiety were being studied and replicated by training programs across the country. But perhaps the most meaningful aspect of Tyler's new role was the scholarship program he established for service workers seeking higher education. Working with Jasper and other successful professionals, Tyler created a foundation that provided financial support and mentoring for restaurant workers, retail employees, and others in service industries who wanted to pursue business education. We're not just helping individuals, Tyler explained to a group of foundation donors. We're tapping into a tremendous reservoir of talent that's been overlooked by traditional talent development systems. People who work in service industries develop skills that are incredibly valuable in business leadership, but they often lack the credentials or connections to be recognized for their potential. End quote. The first class of scholarship recipients included 12 individuals from diverse backgrounds, all of whom had demonstrated the kind of character and capability that Tyler recognized from his own experiences. Watching them begin their educational journeys, Tyler felt the deep satisfaction that comes from helping others discover possibilities they hadn't known existed. One evening, as Tyler was working late in his office, he received an unexpected visitor. Jasper knocked on his door, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who had just witnessed something remarkable. "I thought you might like to know," Jasper said, settling into a chair across from Tyler's desk. "I had dinner at Rosewood tonight, and Tom Brennan told me something interesting." Tyler looked up from the scholarship applications he had been reviewing. "What's that?" "Apparently, word has gotten around in the restaurant community about your success in your scholarship program. Tom says they'd had a significant improvement in staff morale and retention because people now see service work as a legitimate path to professional development rather than a dead end." End quote. Tyler felt a warmth spreading through his chest. "That means more than any business award could." "It should," Jasper agreed. "You've not only transformed your own life, you've changed how an entire industry views itself and its workers. That's the kind of impact that extends far beyond individual success." As Jasper prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "I want you to know, Tyler, that investing in you has been the most rewarding decision I've made in my business career. Not because of the financial returns, though those have been excellent, but because of seeing what you've accomplished and what you're making possible for others." Tyler stood and shook Jasper's hand, feeling the full weight of gratitude for the man who had seen potential where others saw only limitations. "Thank you, Jasper, for everything. For seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself, for taking a chance on me, and for showing me what's possible when someone believes in you." After Jasper left, Tyler remained in his office, looking out at the city lights and reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought him to this point. The young man who had stood trembling before table 12 seemed like a character from someone else's story, but Tyler knew that every experience from that earlier life had contributed to his current success. He thought about Randy Morrison and the other men who had tried to humiliate him that night, wondering if they had any idea that their cruelty had inadvertently set in motion a chain of events that would benefit thousands of Goshen people. Their attempt to diminish him had instead revealed his strength, creating the catalyst for transformation that might never have occurred otherwise. Tyler's phone buzzed with a text message from one of his scholarship recipients, a young woman named Carmen who was completing her first semester of business school. "Tyler, I just wanted to thank you again for making this possible. I got an A on my organizational behavior presentation today, and I thought about everything you taught me about managing anxiety and finding confidence. I couldn't have done it without your support." Messages like Carmen's arrived regularly now, from scholarship recipients, consulting clients, and seminar participants whose lives had been touched by Tyler's work. Each one served as a reminder that success was not just about personal achievement, but about creating opportunities for others to discover and develop their own potential. As Tyler prepared to leave his office that night, he made a mental note to visit Rosewood Bistro soon. Not as a customer, but as someone who wanted to thank the place where his transformation had begun. He wanted to tell the current servers and hosts that their work had value beyond what they might realize, that the skills they were developing every day were preparing them for possibilities they hadn't yet imagined. Walking to his car in the underground parking garage, Tyler reflected on the profound truth he had learned through his journey, that potential exists everywhere, often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with the vision and courage to recognize it and help it flourish. His story was remarkable not because such transformations were impossible, but because they were more possible than anyone realized. The night air was crisp and clear as Tyler drove through the city, passing restaurants and service establishments where countless individuals were developing the very skills that had served as the foundation for his own success. Tomorrow, he would continue his work of helping people recognize their own capabilities and pursue their dreams, knowing that each person he helped would likely help others in turn, creating an ever-expanding circle of possibility and hope. Tyler Martinez had indeed come full circle from that humiliating night at Table 12, but his journey was far from over. It had evolved from a story of personal transformation into something much larger, a movement to recognize and develop the extraordinary potential that exists in ordinary people who are willing to work hard, maintain their dignity under pressure, and never stop believing that they are capable of more than their current circumstances might suggest.